remember all the drifters from Lowestoft. I used to have a list of names like the Silver Line, the Golden Ring, names for all the drifters. And of course the trawlers, one of the famous captains on one of the trawlers, they used to call, what the heck was his name, Fungi, I think, or something like that. They gave that name to Dave O'Rourke later on for some reason. And at Christmas time or New Year's time, when they'd be in Dunmore, at midnight they'd blow their claxons and horns and sirens or whatever, and we'd attend Mass in the convent for midnight Mass. And Doreen Strangman and her mother used to attend, and then the boys had come in a little late, coming out of Power's pub, Dave Murphy and a gang, and they'd come in half drunk. Celebrating, of course, celebrating Christmas. I remember going with the mail one time with his first name I don't remember, but he was McGrath, and he used to buy fish, but at Christmas time with a heavy load of stuff being delivered, I remember going out with him to deliver the post, and every house he would stop and go in, and of course he had to have a couple of drinks, and I'd be standing outside with the rest of the packages, freezing my butt off, but we managed to get through it anyway. Then there was another McGrath, there was a postman, and he had bad legs, but he had the best oiled bike in the whole neighbourhood. He used to come home, and of course May Neeland wouldn't let him off early. He'd have to stay till the appropriate time, so he would bring his bike back and take it outside and oil it and polish it up and clean it for the next day, and that's how he would pass the time until it was time to quit. I can't think of his first name either. And then there was Tommy McGrath. He used to have a dog and a walking stick and a cap. And he had a boat called the Nave Declan, or St. Declan. And I remember John Roach, at one time, he put a marine engine, an American engine, in a fishing boat. My God, when he took off with that engine, the stern of the boat nearly went down under the water. It was so powerful. He was crazy, that man. I saw him carrying 7 people on a bicycle one time, John Roach, and he had a glass eye. I remember Gabriel Murphy when he was going with Helen Welsh, and they used to walk out to the horse quarter. And he said at one time that when he'd get married, he'd build a house down there and call it 7 West the Glen. And he did. And then he didn't live long enough to enjoy his fruits as harbour master of Dunmore East. I remember Jack Murphy and old Glody, the postman, and they decided to build a boat and to hollow it out of a log, a sailboat. And I used to go down there at night time and watch them. Took them several months to build a sailboat. Looked beautiful, varnished up and everything, but it sat too low in the water by the time they added the heavy keel. And I remember working with Glody in a play that we put on in Fisherman's Hall, and I was the waiter, and the Old Geezer was the name of the play, and it was quite funny. It was very funny, as a matter of fact. I used to come out from Waterford with movie film of old westerns to show in the Fisherman's Hall. I think he used to charge 6pence to get in, and the film was always breaking, and he'd have to stop the projector and fix the film and then go ahead again. Mostly old western movies like Tom Mix and Hopalong Cassidy, stuff like that. But it was something to do. And the time that Westcott Pitt, he was in the British Air Force, and the 16th Battalion were in Fisherman's Hole, and they had a hut behind the hole as a barracks, and they had 2 sentries at the wall of Fisherman's Hole, and Westcott Pitt decided one evening to dress up in his full British uniform, Air Force uniform, and walk out of his house, proceeded down the street, in complete defiance, of course, of the Irish Army, and the sentries nearly shot him. They halted him, and they made him go back in again to his house before he could come out. Watt's husband was killed during the war in the Air Force, and I know Doreen Strangman's brother was also killed, joined the British Air Force. Old Strangman himself, in complete defiance of his wife and family, he joined the LSF, and he used to march with us on parades up to Killay Church, and we would stop outside the Protestant church, and he would drop out, attend his service, and he'd be waiting for us when we came back from Killay again, and then he would join in, and we would march over to the tree and fall out there. I remember Willie Gallagher used to deliver milk out of churns up on a donkey and cart. The donkey used to know every stop on the road. He used to go around the corner by Power's Pub, Power's Bar, and he'd never bang into the wall, and he'd stay there. Oh my goodness, I think it was Willie Gallagher. I know he used to deliver milk to my mother anyway down in the guards' barracks. He used to put bone marrow, or marrow out of bones, I should say, that greasy stuff, in his curly red hair. He had a lot of curls and waves in his hair, Willie Gallagher. Then there was the brother John Gallagher. He spent most of his time in Dublin. And of course Milo Gallagher. I piked plenty of seaweed over the wall at Lawler's Hotel, brown seaweed, to spread on his farm. Ernie and I used to go into Fisherman's Hall in the afternoon, and I made a pair of drumsticks, and Ernie had a comb with paper on it, and he would play tunes, and I would drum with the drumsticks on the table. And we'd make a lot of noise drumming and playing the music. American Patrol, I remember. And I would drum away, and Ernie would get tired from blowing into the comb with the paper on it. And Minnie Walsh, would walk over or waddle over, and she had pimples on her face or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but she used to walk over and wonder what we were doing in there. And then she'd say, well, you have to get out now. That was quite a problem when the guys used to play cards on a Sunday afternoon. The Bouchers and, oh my goodness, O'Toole, Paddy O'Toole, and Rocky Power and his brother. And the guy used to work for Westcott Pitt. What was his name? He used to wear a green felt hat. And he married the girl that worked there too. She was a maid at Westcott Pitt's. Can't recall his name at the moment. Scarce in those days, but Paddy O'Toole used to have a nice gold-coloured cigarette case, always filled with gold flake. We were all quite jealous of that. I remembered all the O'Rourke's, and Paddy O'Rourke, he was impaired. He Well, at that time they used to call him the dummy, but he was a shoemaker. He got his training up in Dublin, and I learned how to sign language with him. I was able to talk with him by spelling on my fingers the alphabet, and we used to get along well. I'm helping young Tom Shipsey build a kennel for greyhounds up in the back of his garden. We built it out of concrete, and I spent a week with him there, building this kennel. Young Tom Shipsey. All familiar with the kippering houses and making kippers. I remember a glut one time, and we turned all the herring into salted herring, and Ernie and myself and somebody else, we spent several weeks in one of the sheds, Shipsey's sheds, salting and turning over the herring. So bad, when we used to open the doors in the morning, the oil from the herring used to flow out the front of the door. What a stinking job that was. And they had to get rid of him eventually, throw him over the sea wall at the pier. Not even the little sisters of the poor would take them. You would die if you eat them. There was so much salt on them. And when you would go in to see the movies or the pictures in Waterford City, the smell of the herring, people used to move away from us on the seats because we smelled of fish all the time. And the kippering house, my God, lighting those fires. And then, of course, we used to dip the herring into a dye first before they'd be hung up to be smoked. This cut down on the smoking time to turn them into kippers and red herrings. And then we used to repair the herring boxes that would come back from overseas, and they'd be broken, and we'd get sixpence or threepence apiece to fix them. We'd be all down there in the kippering house. Sam Mitchell and, Richie Fanning, Ernie, Dave O'Rourke. We all took a hand at it one time or another. And sometimes the boxes would be perfectly good, but we'd put the ads through them. The ads was the hammer we used. And we'd break it, and then we'd repair it and put it on our heap, and then get paid for it the next day. Tricks of the trade, you know. Anything to make a few shillings. I remember picking periwinkles one time for Paddy O'Toole, and I picked about 2 buckets of periwinkles under the lookout wall, under the guards' barracks and the lookout wall. And I think I got 3 shillings for that. And then I remember another time that yellow grease came in balls the size of tennis balls or bigger, washed in, and all the guys with the punts went out there and gathered this stuff up. We didn't know what it was. We heard later on that it was some kind of stuff to make soap. But everything was covered with this stuff, the strands and the rocks and everything. But eventually Dick Murphy and I went out in the lifeboat punt and we collected some. And months and months and months later, I got paid about £20 or something. Whatever we got paid from the Irish government. Oh yeah, there were the days.